Joining us right now is Akira Rudik, Ukrainian MP. Akira, hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, Benjamin. Thank you so much for having me.
So, like I just mentioned earlier, a lot of pivotal decisions has been made, especially when it comes to Ukraine's capability, the green light, if you will, for Ukraine to strike inside Russian soil. Of course, recently, the biggest change is that the U.S. have given the green light, given the approval. Can you first tell us how significant this call is?
Let's make it very clear. Why do we need an ability to launch our missiles into Russian territory? It is not because we want it. It is because it is a matter of defending our people. So recently, the front line have moved more into the Kharkiv region, where Russia's border is very close to Kharkiv, and the front line sometimes was as close as 50 kilometers to Kharkiv. So Russia was able to launch missiles and kill people almost every night. And I would like to remind you about two major missile strikes last week. The first one on the weekend when Russians hit the department store where people were shopping, killing more than 20 people. And another strike was on the printing station where more than 40% of Ukrainian language books were printed, and destroying it completely. So we need an ability to protect ourselves against those strikes and to destroy the artillery and missile stations so they would just simply would not be able to kill us. This is why we needed this permission, and this is why we were asking for that.
Right, and a lot of international rhetoric like to use the word escalation. However, like the Polish foreign minister has said, strength is deterrence, and weakness would actually be a larger form of escalation. What would you say about this rhetoric when it comes to the countries that are more reluctant, or at least people who think this will further provoke Russia?
I think Minister of Foreign Affairs is absolutely right. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, all our partners were afraid of so-called escalation and what else Russia can do. But the truth is they are already committing all kinds of the war crimes. They are already using the weapons in their capacity. They are already killing people. And what we are the proof of is that the only way to stop Russia is to fight against them, have the capacity to show the strength to protect your people. And it is not holding away that allowed us to fight against Russia. It's actually using all our resources. And this is why we are asking for our allies to strengthen up, to unify forces and make sure that we have the resources to fight back.
All right, and on the other note, we also know that Zelensky is now on a globetrotting diplomatic offensive. And of course, he's managed to secure a lot of bilateral military aid from countries like Sweden and Norway. Can you help us understand the scale of these kind of bilateral deals and how that might help alleviate some situations over there?
So having the bilateral defense and security agreements with different countries is one of our ways of securing their ability to receive the military help, even if the political powers will change in certain countries. And I think it's a very smart and hopefully a productive move from President Zelensky, because it will allow us to say, like, okay, for the next 10 years, we can count on this and that, and will allow our military to plan accordingly. It is very important because there are still very vague negotiations with the NATO and Ukraine's ability to join the NATO. This is why we know who our friends are, and we have the agreements with them. As of right now, there has been more than, I think, 15 of the agreements done this way, and we will continue working on it. But it basically allows us to say that it is not a personal matter for many European and North American leaders to support Ukraine. It is the will of the people that is written in this security agreement, which is telling you, like, the sanctions, the military support, and of course the usage of the confiscated Russian state assets, which is also a very important topic and important part of every security agreement.
Right, and speaking of Ukraine's international partners, I would also like to draw our attention to the peace summit that is coming up without, of course, the involvement of Russia. Now, of course, there's a very good argument to be made why the aggressor shouldn't be on the table when it comes to discussion of peace. However, some also say that, wonder how productive can a conversation of peace be if you don't involve one of the major players in the war in Ukraine?
We think that there is no doubt that Russia is not ready for the peace. And honestly, Benjamin, I have a personal proof of that. When this year the missile hit near where I live, destroying part of my home and harming many of my neighbors. So we know that Russia is not at the plan or at the point where they would want to have peace. And for them, it would be very easy to do. They just need to pull back their troops and start the negotiation. And we do not see them doing that. However, the peace summit on the scale that is going to be in the Switzerland is indeed important. It's another step in the direction of unifying more and more countries behind Ukraine. As of right now, we know that more than 100 countries have already confirmed their participation. And it is especially important to have the countries from the global south that beforehand used to take so-called neutral stance on the war that Russia launched. We need them to hear our point of view. We need them to hear the truth from us. And we need to build this coalition from countries all over the world that then will help us to pressure Russia with the sanctions, to get more of the weapons and or at least stop them providing weapons to Russia. And of course, bring us one step closer to the peace that we really need.
All right, you brought up some very important points here. First of all, being a very unifying event, as well as a coalition building exercise for Ukraine when it comes to the upcoming peace summit in Switzerland. And I think a lot of our experts are also saying that this is the reason why the original 10-point proposal was kind of watered down to 3, because they want to hone in on the things that all these countries can agree on. Can you explain to us a little bit of that strategy going forward, and what's the attempt there? How will Ukraine be able to garner more international support for this peace?
So we know that the geopolitics is not simple, and that there are many of the parts of the 10-point peace plan by President Zelensky that countries may be doubtful about. And we are ready to discuss them, but we need to start with the ones that we all agree on. The first point is, of course, the nuclear security, because if the tragedy happens, it will be everyone's problem. Second point is the food security. Ukraine continues to provide the grains to many African countries, Eastern countries. And we need to the world to understand that first, it is our initiative. Second, that Russia is trying to stop that. And third, that if we fail, the impact will be huge on the countries that depend on us in terms of the grain and food supplies. The third point is the exchange of the prisoners of the war, all for all. And this is also something that I think everyone can agree on and understand that this is the right thing to do. And so we realized that these 3 points would be something that can bring together much wider group of people than the democratic bubbles that and democratic allies that we have right now. So this is what's going to be discussed. But once we have people agreeing on these 3 points and perhaps having some results executing on those 3 points, then we think we can expand that knowing that we are standing for the right cause for the independence of our country.
Right, this does sound like a very well thought out plan going forward. And it does demonstrate the willingness of all these parties involved to actually reach a negotiation, reach a peace. And like you mentioned, there's over 100 countries that's going to be attending. But of course, everyone's also pointing their attention to one of the major players that's missing, that said they will not attend, that being China. Do you think the absence of China will be significant, as they're also one of the parties that originally stated that they are willing to help negotiate peace?
It is a disappointment that China would not be able to participate, though I know that there has been a tremendous effort on bringing them on board. But you know, Benjamin, it's a matter of progress and matter of steps. And we know that this summit will be a step in the right direction. I should give you an example. That 2 years ago, when we just started working on another important thing as the confiscation of the Russian assets, nobody believed in that, and so many people did not want to support this, did not want to do anything about that. And right now, step by step, small step by step, we are at the point when we are discussing if the G7 will give the permission to use the percentage of the assets at the also important meeting of the G7 in the middle of June. So we know that the diplomacy is just a work of many, many important steps. And this summit, with China or without China, will be an important step in the right direction. This is what we are working on.
All right, like you mentioned, it is frustrating for a lot of Ukrainians and allies to see things are not progressing as fast as maybe we want to see. But however, like again, you mentioned, it is the effort of putting one foot ahead of the other day by day that is slowly going to push things into the direction that we want to see. So what are some of the short-term and long-term goals we want to achieve in this upcoming format? And what are some of the steps that you think will be taken that's going to be very pivotal and crucial for achieving peace, for helping Ukraine achieve ultimate victory going forward?
So the short-term goal of the summit, of course, is having everyone agreeing and trying to push Russia for the exchange of the prisoners of war. It is an additional humanitarian effort that we are all working on in Ukraine with our partners in all the countries, especially in countries of the East who has been very helpful in negotiating with Russia. It is our critical priority to return Ukrainian people home. And so even if the only outcome of the summit will be increasing these efforts and getting more success, it will also already be a success and huge victory for us, because people's life is the foremost important, and we need to fight for every Ukrainian. If there would be additional agreements on the food security, or securing the passes in the Black Sea, or perhaps in the nuclear security. And the example would be allowing international spectators into the Zaporizhzhia nuclear station, which is the larger nuclear station in the Europe. And it has been right now under the control of Russians. And we are constantly living under this threat that we are one incident away from a tragedy. So what needs to happen is the international spectators or organizations being allowed there to check that things are secure and okay, and make sure that there is no fighting anywhere around a nuclear station. That would be critical. This is something that nor ourselves, not international community from Europe and the United States can persuade Russia to do. And we hope that maybe with the help of all the other countries, we may do that. Because again, these are the things that concern everyone, and that everyone will have an impact if that happens.
All right, thank you so much, Kira, and your fight is really inspirational. Thank you so much for being with us on TVP World and unpack the situation that's going on. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Benjamin, and glory to Ukraine.